It's Monday, the 18th of October, 2021. Welcome to Fear and Greed, the business podcast that sets you up for a successful day. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
New South Wales and Victoria ease restrictions and overseas travel is just weeks away. That's our main story. Also today, market surge and Bitcoin heads towards a new record, a cracking weekend for the housing market, and how COVID has reinvented golf. Then stay listening for Sean's chat to Alex Vinokur from BetaShares about a way to invest in the crypto space without buying Bitcoin. But first, Sean, the Victorian economy is set to partially reopen later this week, while there's even more easing of restrictions in New South Wales from today. And we're hearing more as well about the roadmap for overseas travel.
That's right, Michael. Now let's start with the overseas travel first. Australia will reopen quarantine-free travel from Singapore shortly and from the South Island of New Zealand. International travel will come in 3 phases, the government said. First will be Australians returning. The next phase will be students and priority workers coming in. And then finally, tourists. Hopefully by Christmas, Australia will be reopened. Though I must say, Michael, we're still waiting to hear from Western Australia and Queensland on these sorts of things.
Could be waiting a while.
We could. Now on to the states. Fortunately, the number of cases in Victoria have fallen back below 2,000, while New South Wales' daily rate continues to decline. Yesterday, Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews said the lockdown in that state will end this Thursday night after the 70% vaccination rate is achieved. Congratulations to all the Victorians there. There'll be no travel limits, no curfews. 10 people will be allowed into a home, 20 people will be allowed inside indoor restaurants. Mr. Andrews said despite increases in numbers, the state wasn't getting proportionate jumps in hospitalisations, and that's exactly what we want.
Yeah, what about New South Wales? What are the restrictions changing there?
Well, further easings today. Community sports allowed. Up to 20 people are allowed inside indoor gyms and classes. Drinking can be seated or standing. Cinemas, theatres will reopen. Art galleries, museums as well. There'll be no limits on funerals and wedding crowds. And the New South Wales government also said it would spend $130 million on a mental health package. Now, of course, all of this, Michael, assumes that you're vaccinated.
Yeah, that'll make sense. Cinemas reopening, that's the thing that I'm looking forward to. Doesn't it seem like such a treat to go to the movies?
Absolutely, and art galleries. Yeah. Fantastic, can't wait.
Yeah, James Bond. Not going to be in an art gallery, of course, but I'll be lining up at the cinema to see that one.
That's the difference between you and me, Michael.
That's
Cinemas
right.
versus art galleries.
That's right. So, Sean, how did markets perform over the weekend?
Well, the local market finished the week off pretty strongly, with the S&P ASX 200 rising 0.7% on Friday to close at 7,362 points. For the full week, the market gained about 0.5%. Now, locally, Goodman Group, REA, Newcrest Mining, Sonic Healthcare and South32 all went backwards on Friday, but there's some really good performances by some really big companies. Macquarie Group was one, so too BHP and Fortescue Metals. The Aussie dollar starts this week trading at a little more than 74 US cents. That's been creeping higher gradually. Brent crude is close to $85 a barrel. That's up more than 60% this year. And gold is trading close to $1,770 an ounce. Now, Michael, Bitcoin is heading towards a new record, hitting more than $62,000 a unit over the weekend. That's up 40% this month alone. The reason is that there was a media report out of Bloomberg that the US Securities and Exchange Commission was ready to allow the country's first future-based cryptocurrency exchange-traded fund. That got everyone excited.
Yeah, definitely worth sticking around after the episode to listen to your chat with Alex Vinokur as well on a similar subject.
Absolutely.
Now, what about overseas? How did Wall Street do?
Well, several of the big banks on Wall Street reported late last week or over the weekend, and what really has emerged is the amount of mergers and acquisitions activity going on. And what that means is that markets tend to be doing okay. Research firm Refinitiv said that $1.6 trillion
Wow.
in mergers and acquisitions deals were done during the September quarter worldwide. Now, the big US banks are global and often have their hand in many of them. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Bank of America, they're all having a really good time of it. In fact, for the first 9 months of the year, Goldman Sachs made nearly $18 billion, US dollars that is, and that's a record. All this activity has helped propel equity markets higher, with the S&P 500 surging sharply in the final couple of sessions last week. In fact, last week was the best week on Wall Street since July. Same deal for London's FTSE and the Stocks Europe 600.
All right, good wrap. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, plenty of stories to talk about this morning. I'd say the housing market is back at full steam, but to be fair, it's probably never really slowed down that much. It was a very busy weekend.
Sure was, Michael. It was the busiest auction weekend this year for Melbourne. Sydney had its highest preliminary clearance rate, 85%, since last autumn. Incredible. Across the country, there were almost 3,000 homes up for sale, and there was an 82% national clearance rate. Canberra, Perth, Adelaide, Sydney, they all had clearance rates over 80%. Melbourne was just a bit under. I think the changes from the Prudential regulator last week has triggered a bring forward of sales somewhat. Remember, they're going to change the rules around serviceability buffers. And there's also talk that other rules might be introduced that might make it harder to get a home loan. So people are rushing to buy something.
It really is a spectator sport, isn't it, at the moment?
Sure is.
Quite remarkable. Now, Sean, the boss of BHP, Mike Henry, said over the weekend that he didn't expect China will relax its ban on Australian coal shipments, notwithstanding that China did let a few ships unload over the past fortnight.
Yes, Mr. Henry said that BHP was planning on coal bans for years to come. He said the recent media reports of coal landing on mainland China had occurred, but that coal had been sold prior to the ban, which of course raises a question when you buy something and you're waiting for more than 12 months for the product to arrive. I think that's quite remarkable. Anyway, This ban on coal has never been official. It has caused coal prices to surge. Buying coking coal in China at the moment is 55% higher than if you bought it in Queensland. Thermal coal prices are 5 times higher than they were 14 months ago. It also means that the Chinese companies are buying lower grade coal, so they need more of it. You put all that into the mixmaster, and I suspect that China has sort of shot itself in its foot by not buying Australian coal.
Yeah. Now, Sean, it would have been a big day on Friday for economists because the Bureau of Statistics released a new monthly economic indicator. It's called the Monthly Business Turnover Indicator and does pretty much what the name suggests. And it shows the ongoing impact of COVID-19 lockdowns and restrictions in large parts of Australia. So what did it teach us?
Well, as you said, it does exactly what it says, and it showed that accommodation and food services have been hardest hit during COVID, so too arts and recreation services. Mining's a sector that just sort of has kept trundling along, while not surprisingly, transport, postal and warehousing has done really well as we've all bought stuff online. What I think is really interesting about this is that it just indicates how much COVID has changed the world of economics and accelerated data collection. There's now weekly credit and debit card figures from banks. There's now weekly consumer sentiment readings. There's this new monthly business indicator from the ABS. There's lots of noise around, but once this all matures, we should actually be able to read what's going in the economy much sooner than we have done in previous years. This wouldn't have happened without COVID. It's a real acceleration of data around the economy. The upshot of that is that it means that monetary and fiscal policy should be more timely than if it wasn't there, and theoretically at least, assuming the Reserve Bank and governments act sensibly, you shouldn't get the volatility going forward. Now, I'm not exactly putting my house on that, but that's the theory.
Seems to make sense. Question for you, Sean. Are you a golfer?
I am. I'm not very good though, but I do enjoy playing it and I enjoy watching it, and my kids like it, so I get to play with them. So, all in all, I like golf.
Well, you'll like this one then. New research launched by the Australian golf industry says the sport can take advantage of the phenomenal growth in activity during COVID-19. 9 million Australians are like you, Sean. They are interested in golf.
Yes, it's pretty staggering, but I suppose during lockdowns there wasn't a lot else to do. The report, which comes via a collaboration of several peak groups within golf, says that 9 million are interested, though 2/3 of that, so 6 million, haven't played a game. The big challenge for golf is to get more women and girls involved, the report says, and a key to growth in the future is to create shorter forms of the game and improve public facilities. Now, I think this is really interesting because the big issue with golf is how much time it takes, and people are time poor. Golf has undoubtedly been one of the biggest benefactors of COVID lockdowns, mostly because courses have remained open. But, Michael, there's plenty of competition for people's time. Now, Sports Australia said the most popular sport is...
It's going to be one of the football codes?
walking.
Oh,
Well, this is people actually undertaking the activity, and it doesn't include school sports. So it's actually people choosing to do it. Walking, then gym, then swimming. Running comes in at 4, then cycling. Golf is actually number 10, just ahead of yoga.
all right, Sean, what's making headlines in today's news media?
Well, there's not a huge amount around today, Michael. Several media outlets are reporting that New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet's wife is expecting their 7th child. Congratulations to the Perrottets. And with the world slowly reopening, the battle of the big screen films resumes. Over the weekend in the United States, Halloween Kills, the latest instalment in a long-running horror series, knocked off the James Bond movie No Time to Die in North America.
Running through some of the other stories around over the weekend, the climate change debate continues, and Finance Minister Simon Birmingham said yesterday that the Nationals weren't dictating the federal government's climate change policy. The Prime Minister said on Friday that the economy was moving on climate change with or without the government, basically. A block of mostly Queensland Nationals really remain the sticking point for substantial change in government policy. Yesterday, the Nationals leader Barnaby Joyce said it was unlikely that the party will agree to an increase in the coalition's 2030 midterm emissions reduction target.
The Australian Securities and Investments Commission is suing insurer IAG for misleading and deceptive conduct after the insurer offered around 600,000 customers discounts based on inflated premiums. ASIC claims about $60 million in discounts weren't actually passed on, affecting almost 600,000 customers.
New South Wales is heading for yet another by-election after former Labor leader Jodie McKay said she'd resigned from Parliament. Former Premier Gladys Berejiklian and Deputy Leader John Barilaro have both resigned in recent weeks. There are now going to be 5 by-elections in the state of New South Wales.
Incredible. Qantas booked an $800 million profit selling 14 hectares of land near its Sydney Mascot headquarters, and there might be another $200 million in sales, according to analysts. The airliner said the proceeds would be used to pay down debt.
Rio Tinto on Friday downgraded its iron ore export target for the 3rd consecutive year, and its Mongolian copper project has been delayed yet again. Rio is Australia's biggest exporter of iron ore, but it hasn't invested significantly in new deposits for several years, and the results are now being felt.
And Treasury Wines held its annual general meeting on Friday, saying that the Sydney and Melbourne lockdowns meant on-premise sales were dragging the business back. The recovery in luxury wine sales in the Americas were also behind schedule.
All right, let's have a look overseas. What's the key international news this morning, Sean?
Well, Michael, plenty of questions remain unanswered about the stabbing death of a British Conservative MP, David Ames, over the weekend in what police called a terrorist attack. Sir David was meeting constituents at a church east of London. A suspect has been arrested. Now, it comes 5 years after another MP, Joe Cox, was murdered by a right-wing extremist in her small town constituency. Very sad.
Yeah, shocking, isn't it?
Sure is. The Financial Times is reporting that China tested a nuclear-capable hypersonic missile in August that circled the globe before speeding towards its target, demonstrating an advanced space capability that caught the US intelligence by surprise. And Michael, so far, we've managed to avoid mentioning Squid Game thus far on Fear and Greed. Something to be proud of, you'd agree?
I think so, but I have a feeling that it's about to end.
It is ending. Squid Game is the Netflix mega hit, which according to Bloomberg News has created around $900 million in value for Netflix, the streaming service. Now, Netflix relies on people signing up to its service, and it knows what shows triggers a sale. And apparently, Squid Game is responsible for $900 million of sales.
That's incredible. Have you watched it?
I haven't watched it, and then I saw it in the background, and it is totally compelling. I couldn't stop watching it, and I had to pull myself away.
All right. Well, I typically watch things about 2 years after their release, so I'll let you know what I think in about 2023.
Great.
Up next, Sean, is the Daily Interview, and you are speaking to Alex Vinocour from BetaShares today.
Sure is, and timely given the run in Bitcoin at the moment. Alex tells us about the new ETF BetaShares is offering, and it's all about getting exposure to cryptocurrencies while reducing your exposure to the volatility in the market. It's a really interesting take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au, and a couple of other podcasts to check out while you're there. The Week Ahead, that's with you and Stephen Koukoulas. What's coming up this week, Sean?
There's actually not a lot going on this week. There's Reserve Bank minutes this week, but we have a really good chat. Stephen and I had a really good chat about where the economy's up to, given all the information we got last week.
Yeah, and the other podcast that I would recommend having a bit of a listen to is the Sunday edition of Fear and Greed, released yesterday, of course, but it's a bit of a lighter look at some of the business news that's going around, including everything ranging from whether there is a union for astronauts right through to who on earth is actually buying Toblerone chocolates these days.
Yes, Michael, it's very different to our weekday edition.
Indeed. Definitely worth checking out. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Michael. Have a great day.
It's Monday, the 18th of October, 2021. Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn, on Twitter and Facebook, and sign up for our free daily newsletter. That's at fearandgreed.com.au. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.